Hello everybody, welcome to Tuesday. It's still raining for me. It's not stopped raining. I'm sick of it, I'm sick of all the rain. Hopefully today's session will brighten everyone up a little bit because it's inspired by Mexican folk art, something that I've seen a lot of, and I think it's super fun and easy, and I wanted to introduce a new thing because a lot of the stuff I do is lots of sequins, lots of cutting and pasting, lots of cutting out bits of books and magazines. But this one today, we're going to do some clay, which I've never done before. So that's really exciting. But as usual, if you've seen my sessions before, they're all accessible to everyone. I don't want anyone to think that you have to become a potter, because I'm definitely not. And that's kind of why we're using clay. I love the idea of doing pottery and making pots, but I don't have the time, the space, the energy, and most importantly, the skill. So this is like an alternative. So it's a way of using clay that anyone can use. It's super easy. You don't need a kiln. You don't need anything really. You just need a bit of clay, and we can make something beautiful. So today we are making Matchbox shrines. So the idea is that they're a beautiful kind of decoration that you would maybe give as a gift, or you'd put out on display, but you use a matchbox to make it. So it makes a nice gift because it can kind of be concealed like so. And then when we open it up, wow, it's got a beautiful kind of 3D effect to it because we're going to use some clay. So I've got a couple of examples here. So this is a large one. And then we've got this one here, which has got a little skeleton on it. If you've not seen the film Coco, which is like I think it's Pixar, Disney Pixar, get it watched. It's beautiful. And we can take inspiration from that film because it's amazing. So that's the sort of thing we're going for today. I'll just pop that in there so you can see how it works. So beautiful, beautiful, and then you push it out. Ah, gorgeous, lovely, shiny, colourful. We want lots of colour today because it's so grey outside. So you're going to need a few different materials. Now, what I would say about this session is if you are following along with me, then I'm not going to do it in the order that I would usually do it in. What I would usually do is start with the clay. So the clay that we would use is called air dry clay. You can buy it pretty much in any craft store and it's really cheap, and you don't need loads of it. So I haven't got a packet to show you because the packet that I bought is about this big and it's really, really heavy. I think it's about 10 kilograms or something. We don't need that at all. You can buy packs of air dry clay that are about this big for a few pounds. And the idea is that you shape it like normal clay. It feels like normal clay. And then you just leave it to dry. You don't do anything with it. You just leave it. And once it's dry, you can paint it. The only thing is that you can't really put it outside because if it then gets wet again, it kind of like loses its shape again. So this is a kind of inside decoration. I mean, we're using lots of cardboard and sequins, so you wouldn't want to put it outside anyway. Air dry clay is really easy to use. It's not expensive. It goes really far, especially for this sort of thing. And you don't have to have any special equipment, you just leave it. So in terms of the order today, I'm going to leave the clay bit till last, mainly because I'm going to get very wet, dirty clay fingers, and so then I can't decorate the matchboxes with that. So what I would say is if you are going to try this out, I usually start with the clay, leave that to dry overnight, and then we can go and decorate that afterwards. So the order is going to be slightly different because I'm going to decorate the matchboxes first, and you might notice that I've got a couple of example clay pieces here that I'm going to use to decorate. So these are like the finished products. This is air dry clay that has dried, and you'll see it's like hard and lighter in colour to the sort of clay that we'll be using later. It's ready to paint, it's ready to go. This will need 24 hours to dry, maybe 48 hours, depending on how big your piece is. Most air dry clay, it will tell you not to put it on anything warm to dry it out, because if it dries too quickly, it can crack. But what I found is because we're using such small pieces, it's fine. You can put it, so I put these guys on a radiator. I put them on our radiators like flat on the top, so they can kind of they can sit on there without falling off. And I just popped these in a tray and then stuck the tray on my radiator and left them there overnight, and they were absolutely fine. So I think it would be bigger things. So if you were trying to make structures like pots or cups and things like that, then they might crack if you warmed them up overnight. But this sort of thing is fine. So you can stick these on a radiator and they should be dry and ready to paint the next day. But as I said, I'll do the constructing of clay later so we don't get dirty finger marks all over our beautiful matchboxes. The matchboxes themselves, you can use any matchbox you like. You can use your normal safety matchboxes if you've got those that you get from the shop, as long as you've got somewhere that you can put the matches, or if you've used all the matches. But you can, and this is what this is, buy plain matchboxes from craft stores. So this is like this is like your standard safety matchbox size. And you can get a pack of 4 of these from the range, and I think they were £1.50. You can also buy the bigger ones, which is what these guys are, and this was a pack of 3, and I think that was also about £1.50. So they're pretty cheap, especially if you're making these as gifts. You know, you're using kind of like pens and paint and materials that you've hopefully got knocking around. The air dry clay will do, I'm going to guess, at 100 matchboxes. If you were to buy a sort of small pack of air dry clay, that's how far it goes. So it's pretty inexpensive, especially if you're gift making. I think this is a really lovely idea. Now, I should have thought about this before, but alas, here we are. We could make these into Easter gifts. If we're thinking ahead, if we have a go at these, maybe consider when I'm constructing the clay that you could do something Eastery, like an Easter egg shape or an Easter chick shape, rather than the sort of hearts and skeletons, which is the sort of Mexican theme I'm going for. So if you're looking for something nice to make for Easter, this would be great. You could also add some chocolates in there, slide it open. It's got your little eggs and then a lovely little diorama in there. I think that would work. But I'm just going to crack on with the decorating. Let's actually make some stuff. I'm still talking. Why am I still talking? Okay, it's because I've just had a coffee. So I'm going to pop these to one side, and then we're going to start our decorating process. And it's super easy. If you've done my sessions before, it's much of the same. It's using scrap materials, shiny things, bright colours, and then just plonking them all on with glue. That's what we're doing. That's all we're doing. So I'm going to start with the inside of the matchbox, because that's the fun bit. That's the really exciting bit. And you'll see it's just a plain box. Now, because it's been folded and it's got all these sort of folded marks here, I think it's best to cover that with some card. So you could paint it or you could colour it in, but you're going to then see these sort of line marks. If your matchbox is constructed in a different way and this back bit is flat, then go ahead and just colour it in. You could use a brightly coloured pen, you could paint it with some paint, but I'm going to actually cut out some shiny paper or card to stick in there. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to colour in the edges. Now for the edges, I've got these Posca pens, which are like your chalk markers. These are really big ones. You don't need to use these at all. You could use acrylic paint. You could use poster paint if you wanted. You might just need to use a few layers of poster paint because it's not as pigmented as some paints. But I'm going to use these just because it's quicker to show you guys. If you have access to these, they're great. They will go on anything. They're really like strong in colour. They're fantastic. But the problem with Posca pens is they are quite expensive. So I'm not expecting you all to have these. They're expensive but fantastic. But paint will work just as well. Thanks very much, Pippa. Thank you. I'm glad you like my style. I like this style as well. I love doing this sort of thing, especially on days like this. I'm going to keep complaining about the rain. I hope you don't mind. I'm furious about how rainy it is. Okay, so first of all, we're going to choose our colour. I think I'm going to go in with this lovely sort of royally blue. And I would recommend, if you're going to do a cutout insert, which is what I'm going to do, we start with the colour first, simply because it doesn't matter if we get it on that flat bit there, because we're going to cover it up anyway. I'm going to try and be a bit neater on the edges because I'm going to change what colour I do on the outside. I think that's the key really, is that we're going to plonk as many colours as we can on there, because the brighter the better, I say. Now, the only problem with these Posca pens is it's harder to get in these little corners. So if you are using paint, this will be a bit easier if you've got a nice small paintbrush. So trying to get in all the nooks and crannies of the Matchbox. So we can't see any of the brown is essentially what we're going for. The good thing about the Posca pens as well is that they dry quickly. You can get non-branded Posca pens. They will be called sort of chalk pens or paint pens, because it's sort of like paint in a pen. And you can get much cheaper versions. I've just had these for years. They last forever. So I'll keep using them until they're on their last legs. So I'm just colouring that edge in there, first of all. Now, I'm not sure how quick I need to be with the decorating process, because I don't know how long I'm going to take to construct my clay. But this is why I wanted to do the clay, because I'm not very good with clay. I'm not a very good potter. I'm not good at that sort of thing. So that's why I'm sort of challenging myself to do something that I believe anyone can still have a go at, even if they don't think they're very skilled at it. That's the point of all of my sessions, is that like all of us are creative. It's not the skill, it's the process, it's the enjoyment, right? So that's why we're putting clay in today. So I've done my inside edges blue, and then I guess we'll go in with another colour on the outside. Let's maybe do some pink, seeing as it's here. You can change it. So for this one, for example, we've got blue, pink, and then I think we've even got some yellow on the back there. So you can do as many colours as you like. The brighter the better, I think. And you could do patterns on here as well. You don't have to do just colours. You could do all sorts of different things. You could do stripes, spots, whatever you like. We are going to plonk a load of sequins on there, because I don't know what session. There's probably more sessions where I've used sequins than I haven't. Put it that way. Oh, I've just got a bit of fluff stuck on there. Lovely. I think that probably means Rosie needs to dust her office. I think that's what that means. That's not going to happen anytime soon, I don't think. Okay, so I've done the pink edges there. And you want to cover every single surface, because every single surface will be, you'll be able to see. So we are going to decorate as much of it as possible. So the only thing now is to do this top edge without touching the wet bits. The good thing about these sort of pens is they dry really quickly. So it means that you can kind of crack on with stuff. So paint is obviously going to take a bit longer. But again, like I've done with the air dry clay, you could kind of stick them on the radiator to dry things quicker, or you could just take your time. I'm just doing this super quickly so that I can show you guys. Okay, so I'll do the back in a little while because I'm conscious of time. So I'm going to pop the card in next. So what I've got here is some shiny metallic card. I've got loads of different colours here. I just think anything that's shiny, glittery, anything like that is perfect. And again, I do think in terms of like price, you can buy like a pack of shiny card like this in different colours for a couple of pounds if you make sure you're going to sort of like pound shops, or I think the range is quite cheap for craft goods. Places like Hobbycraft can sometimes be a bit more expensive, but it will go really far because you'll get maybe like 10 sheets and you're only using this much, so it will go really far. If you don't have any metallic paper though, what I would recommend is that like glitter goes very, very far and is totally inexpensive if you go and get it from a pound shop. So you could use normal paper if you use just coloured card or a cutout from a magazine of something that's bright, stick that in there, and then you could just throw a load of glitter on it and that will make it nice and shiny. Okay, so now I need to decide what colour I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do gold today. Yeah, I'm going to do gold. I'm feeling gold kind of day. And the easiest way to do this is to turn your shiny paper over. I'll just move these examples out of the way. And then we're going to sort of draw around it. But bear in mind that the bottom piece is probably going to be slightly bigger than the inside piece because it's a constructed card sort of piece. So I'm going to just draw around that. There you go. And then I'm going to cut that out, but I'm conscious that it's probably going to be too big, and that's fine because then we can just cut it down to shape as long as we've got the right sort of, we've got the right size pretty much. So you'll see, look, that's too big. So then we can just sort of trim it. I'll trim it this way, and just I'm going to do it by eye. You can be really neat and do this with a ruler if you so wish. I do not have the patience, so I'm just gonna go for it, see what happens. Okay, it's still ever so slightly, and you're just going to keep cutting it down to size until it slides in nicely. So close. I think we just want to go, this edge just needs to go ever so slightly, and then I think that'll be it. Now, you probably, if you do this nice and flush like this, you're probably not even going to need to stick it down. You could just plonk it in there, stick it right in. But what I might do, just to be sure, is just do a little dollop of PVA glue, just for peace of mind, just a tiny little bit, just so we know that it is stuck. And then we're going to pop it into place. Now, I probably could have trimmed that down ever so slightly more, but I think that will do nicely, actually. There we go. So now, and I do think, personally, you can experiment and do it in loads of different ways, but I think personally, as long as that back bit is shiny, then we can't go wrong. It just adds a little something to it, doesn't it? That sort of like reflective material works really well. So that's that done, easy peasy. So what I'm going to do very quickly is just go back in with my blue and I'm going to be really careful not to get it on the gold. I just want to go in and get any sort of corners that I've missed before I carry on. So I'm just doing one more layer. I'm just being picky here. Okay, lovely. I think that's fine, isn't it? Just go over that edge slightly. I just don't want to see any of that brown card. I want it to be completely decorated and covered. So now we've got all our edges. I haven't done the bottom bit yet, but you guys can do the bottom bit, no problem. So there's a few different things we can do here. So you might notice on these ones that there's a kind of like, it's not super shiny, it's got glitter on it as well. So this is Mod Podge, which is stuff people use for sort of decoupage and things like that, but this has got loads of glitter in it. This is quite expensive, but don't worry, you can literally just add a load of glitter to PVA glue and it will have exactly the same effect. So don't feel like you need to go and get this. I've just got it again for sort of speed and ease. You would just need to pour a bit of your standard PVA glue, this was like £1, into a pot and then mix it in with a load of glitter, and then you can paint over it and then you have that glittery effect. So I'm going to do that right now just to show you, and I'm going to paint the background and the inner bits here. You can paint all of it, so this is all completely painted with the glittery glue just to give it an extra effect. Move those little bits out of the way. And I guess the great thing about making your own glitter glue is that you can choose what glitter colour you choose. You could have any colour glitter in there and it would have a slightly different effect if it was like red glitter or pink glitter. So obviously this is sort of a PVA type glue, so this is going to dry see-through, which is what we want. We don't want to use glue that doesn't dry clear. We want to be able to see all these bright colours afterwards. We're just adding layers of glitter and sequins because that's how I like to live my life, with lots of glitter and lots of sequins. I'm not going to do these edges just so that I can hold it and show you, because what I would probably do if I was doing this off camera is I would paint all of these bits and then I'd set it to dry so that I wasn't then messing up the glitter and the glue when I moved on to the next bit. So I would probably paint all of these edges with glittery glue. The other good thing about painting it with glitter glue or just normal PVA glue is you're sort of setting everything in place then. So what that means is once this is all dry, it's less likely to sort of tarnish or get scratched or pull off any of the paint because it's got that extra layer of see-through glue around it. So I would recommend painting all of it with either just standard PVA glue or PVA glue with a load of glitter in it. But I'm not going to do these edges just so that I can keep handling this to show you what's next. So the next thing is your clay piece and loads of sequins. Yes, please. So you will notice here that I've got some example pieces. So here's one that I painted, but I haven't stuck in. which won't fit into this small one, but would fit into a larger one. So it just gives you an idea of the sort of thing we're working with. And I'm going to show you how I make these in a little while with the actual clay. But then I've also got a little skeleton because I really like making skeletons. And then I've got these two. So these two pieces of clay, which we're going to use today, which are pieces that I've made and have dried overnight and are ready to be painted, basically. And they will both fit in this small one. So we can either go with, I'll paint both of them, but we can either go with a single heart, or we can go with the sort of this oval piece with the skeleton on top. We'll decide as we're going along. Maybe I'll do a poll. We'll have to vote. Have you all got your buzzers to vote which one? So I'm just going to get another paintbrush because I didn't pick up enough. Okay. Oh, the actual bristles have just fallen off that paintbrush, so that's a good start, isn't it? Right, I have got two different coloured paints here to paint our clay pieces. I've got a purple and a turquoise. These are fancy acrylics. You don't need fancy acrylics. I've got these because they're small pots and they're easy for me to dunk my paintbrush in while I'm showing you. But any kind of acrylic paint is fine. I would say acrylic paint is probably the best just because it's a stronger pigment. If you don't have access to acrylic paint, then you could try poster paint, but you might have to do quite a lot of layers. So you might have to paint it, wait for it to dry, paint it again, wait for it to dry, paint it again, because poster paint is by nature just a lot thinner and less strong in colour. Oh, thank you, Ali. I'm glad I'm cheering people up. This is the only thing I want to achieve today, is just to cheer even just myself up, because again, I'm going to complain about the rain. The rain is upsetting me. Let's make nice bright things to make it all better. So yeah, acrylic is definitely your best bet, but it doesn't have to be fancy acrylic. I've got acrylics over here, which you can't see, on my very messy pegboard of paint and pens. And I've got acrylic paint that I've got from the range, which is about £2, and it's just as good. You just might find you need to do a few more layers. You don't need to buy this fancy stuff at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint our clay. So our air dry clay, I tried to use the Posca pens on the clay, didn't work. I think the clay is quite chalky, obviously it's clay, and it sort of soaks up on these sorts of pens. So what I would say at this point is, if you're using the air dry clay, paint is the only option here. Any kind of pen is just going to stop working because this is so chalky, it's just soaking up the nib, if that makes sense. So as long as it's paint, you should be fine. And especially if it is acrylic paint. And simple as just painting it. So you'll see, I've got a hair on there. So you'll see that because it's acrylic paint, it's kind of going on really nicely. And I can't see any kind of, it's not showing through the clay at all. You might have to go over another layer if it's like a little bit wishy-washy. You want it to be as smooth as possible so that we can add to it if we want to, because the joy of this is once it's painted, we can add decorations to it. So I'm just going to do the top bit and as much of the edge as possible without getting messy, which is kind of impossible for me. You should see me, I think maybe 1 month I'll do a session on here, which is just Rosie tidying up after one of these sessions, because I just make such a mess. In fact, I'm probably here longer than I am the sessions, just tidying up, to be honest. Just throwing away bits of cut out magazine, wiping glitter onto the floor, trying to find sequins under a chair. That's basically what happens every time I'm here. So I've painted the top of that. If you want to be, you know, really, what's the word I'm looking for? Really detailed, you could wait for this to dry and then you could paint the other side. I'm not going to do that because we don't have time, but you can paint all of it. The good thing about this is, as I knock the camera, the good thing about these are you can decide if you want this to be attached to your Matchbox or not attached. So the great thing about Matchbox shrines is these could act as like charms, things that you can take out and hold, or they can be stuck into the Matchbox and act as a kind of decorative piece that you would put up on a wall or on a surface. So depending on what you want to do with your clay piece, if you think it's going to be detachable, so it's something someone can take out, so like these little guys are quite fun, you might want to be able to take it out and hold it, a little bit like the sort of like worry dolls you get in a bag, it might be something you want to hold. You might think about painting the whole thing because you're going to have access to every surface of it, but that's entirely up to you. If you want to stick it down, that's fine. That's what I've done with these. I've stuck them down with just normal PVA, so they're not super glued down, but they're glued down enough for you to be able to sort of pop it up and have it up on display. So there's that one. Let's just paint the heart real quick. I'm going to do that in this lovely turquoise colour. Again, the brighter the better, I think, every time. Always better if it's brighter, and always better if we use all the colours, I think. No colour schemes involved in this. It's all the colours. The colour scheme is all colours. Now, if you are doing this, I'm saying that as a joke, you can do this in a colour scheme if you so wish. If you're doing this as like a gift for someone and you know that they've got a particular, I don't know, say their kitchen is all blues, you might want to think about making these all blue colours, but I still think it needs to be bright and using as many variants of that colour as you can, and still adding loads of sequins and glitter on it, obviously. I'm just being really careful with this paintbrush because it's broken and the bristles might pop off at any second. But again, I'm just going to paint the front of this, continue knocking the camera as usual, no change there. And then I'm not going to do the bottom just for time purposes, so you can see the next bit. I'm going to try really hard not to get painty fingers, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think I'm probably going to get paint all over me. I'm going to get clay all over me shortly, so no worries. Okay, so I think that's pretty much done. And you can see how pigmented that colour is. There's no clay showing through there. You'd know immediately if you were using a poster paint, you'd see that sort of grey colour showing through. And so you would have to consider how many layers of that you need to do. I'm just going to do this bit where my thumb was, if I can pick up the paintbrush without getting paint everywhere. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to pop that down quickly before I ruin it and put the paint to one side, because that's all we need the paint for. We don't need the paint for anything but painting the clay. The rest of this is just being used now. We're just using sequins and bits and bobs that we're going to stick down. So I think we can move on to the sequins now, which is my favourite bit. Yes. These example pieces are going to dry. I'm going to slide them over here while they have a little dry. And we're going to now think about decorating the inside of our matchbox. So the only thing we've got to consider here is that this can slide into the outer bit of the matchbox, right? So the sort of jacket of the matchbox, if you will. So the only thing that I would say is go for your life with your sequins and glitter, but don't do the edges. If you do these outside edges, you're going to find you've put loads of work into sticking down loads of sequins, and then the second you try to put this on, they all just ping off and you'll be really sad. I very nearly stuck a load of sequins down to the edge. I realised at the last minute. I was very pleased that I realised. So we're going to do just the inside. Now you can see with this one, I've made a sort of like montage, if you will, of sequins, and I've sort of put it with the clay. So you can do that as an option, or you can just add a load of sequins however you so wish. Definitely want sequins on the edges. Absolutely 100% that has to happen. The only thing I would say is, because sequins and PVA glue, they don't really like being together until they're dry. You need to do one edge at a time. So you're going to have to do one edge, and you're going to need to hold it upright, and you need to leave it there until the glue comes a bit tackier and is holding them in place. If you try doing every single edge, what's going to happen is you're going to stick them down, you'll leave it there, and they're all going to slide down the walls of the matchbox and end at the bottom. So just take your time with the sequins if they're on a vertical edge, I should say. If they're on a vertical edge, they need to be popped flat and left to dry for a little while. Hopefully that makes sense. So before I start with my sequins, we just need to decide if we're going to do the heart or are we going to do the oval with the skeleton? If anyone wants to comment and say which they prefer out of heart and oval and skeleton, please say so now. Forever hold your peace. I'm probably going to take the first answer while I get the sequins out. If anyone wants to say otherwise, I will choose for myself. I don't know which one I'm going to choose though. I don't know. If anyone has a preference. Oh, we've got a heart. We've got a heart straight in with heart. Okay. If anyone wants to, does anyone want to raise me an oval and a skeleton, or are we going to go with heart? I think we're going to go with heart, aren't we? I'm just getting some sequins out. Wait, I'm ready to talk about sequins, but I'm also like checking. I'm just checking to see if anyone else comments. Okay, we've got a skeleton. Oh well, that's great. So we've got one heart, one skeleton. Okay. Someone else is going to have to. We're going to need one more comment, I'm afraid. Otherwise, I'm going to have to be the deciding one. I don't want to be the decider because I'm the one in charge of the session. If anyone else would prefer a heart or a skeleton, please tell me now. I'm going to get the sequins out now. So this is a massive bag of sequins. This was £1 from Poundland. Oh no, we've had another skeleton, another heart. Oh no. Okay, another heart. Okay, we are 3-2 on heart. I'm going with heart. That's what's happening, and that's my final offer. Okay, we're going with heart. Great. So sequins. Concentrate on sequins, Rosie. So this big bag of sequins cost £1 from Poundland. I bought it over a year ago, at least over a year ago, and as you can see, it's still pretty full. I think sequins. I buy lots of sequins. I don't need to. You need one bag. That's it. I would just say if you don't have sequins at home and you want to buy some, just make sure if you go to your sort of local pound shop or whatever, get the cheapest that you can. But the main thing is get one that's like a mixed bag. You will often find, and I think this is a bit of a trick, where they'll sell like bags of sequins that are a certain type of sequin. They'll be like, oh, here are the circular sequins and they are this much money, and here are the heart-shaped sequins and they're this much money. Then you have to buy every single pack. You can buy these mixed bags. You can buy them in most craft shops as well, where it's just a mixed bag of loads of different types of sequins. These are the ones we like because they have just everything in them. There's just so many options, and you can just root through them and choose which you like for every single project that you're doing, which is great. So this is what we're using today. Big bag of sequins. I'm going to have to sift through these bits that say Merry Christmas, and then we need to choose. Well, I am lying. I've got 2 bags actually. Might go into the second bag. But really, what we're going to look for is a selection of sequins that are in contrasting colours to the sides of our Matchbox, possibly contrasting colours to the back section. And we want, I think, you can do whatever you like, right? You can put every single sequin you could put down could be different. It could be a different shape. It could be a different size. But the way I do it is by doing like a combinations of 2s. So you'll see on this one, we've got pink circle, blue heart, pink circle, blue heart. And I've done that on the opposite end. Oh, no, I haven't. I've done blue heart, gold circle. But you see what I mean? I've sort of stuck with a pattern. And then on these sides, I've gone heart, star. And then on this side, it's the same. So I find that the easiest way to do it is having sort of multiples of 2s and alternating them. I just think that I don't know why, it just kind of looks framey to me. That makes sense to me. You'll see on this one I've done the same. So we've got circle and heart. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. Like I say, you can do whatever you want with your sequins. You could do one of every single sequin you have. So what I'm going to probably do is I'm going to get some, so I know this one's got lots of red hearts in. So this is the hardest bit really, is rooting through your bag of sequins to find what you need. I mean, I could have done this before, couldn't I? I didn't think about this, but what I've managed to do inadvertently whilst rooting through is I've got myself 4 purple hearts and 4 red hearts. So we'll use those straight off the bat. See if I can get some silver and gold circles as well. I think that would work nicely. Oh, I quite like the pink circles though as well. Oh no. This always happens, doesn't it, to me? I'm always like, oh no, but I like this colour. But what about this colour? So I'm just going to keep pinching a few out of the bag and then just finding what we need. So I've got 3 silvers, I've got 2 golds. What else do I need? Probably another silver. I can't do all of this anyway because we've got to do it section by section. So I'm going to move these out. Let's move these out of the way. Spending too much time thinking about sequins, aren't I? What time are we on? We're doing fine. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I would glue these down, and then I'm going to leave this standing upright. And hopefully by that point our heart will be dry and we'll be able to do a bit with it. So we'll go with, let's go with the red hearts and the silver circles, because that's what we've got going. So we want it, I don't know how I'm going to show you this because it needs to be sort of tipped. So you can see it. If I tip it ever so slightly like that, no, you can't really see it, can you? Hopefully this will make sense. Let's have a go. So I'm going to start with, and I'm not looking about putting PVA glue in a bowl or anything like that. I'm going to go straight from glue to sequin. I find that the easiest way to do it. It's less fiddly. You're holding your sequin, you're holding your glue. Gosh, easy. I do think that if you struggle with like dexterity in your fingers, and this is quite difficult, or eyesight as well, because sequins are tiny, I struggle trying to find them. I would say a set of tweezers is your best friend. So tweezers are fantastic if you want to grip things, for holding things, for gluing things, and also for finding things. So tweezers and sequins go together beautifully. I'm going to try and do it with my fingers, and you can watch me probably fail. I'm getting pretty good at this now though. So you can see I've just done a little dollop of glue, and then I'm going to do this so you can see it, and I'm going to stick it down on the edge, and I'm doing it as close to the edge as possible. Just see if you can get the light on that. I'm getting it as close to the edge as possible and as central as possible. Now if I then put this flat and leave it there, those sequins are just going to fall to the bottom. So that's why we're holding it upright. Okay, we're going to go in with a heart now. So I'm just going to do this one edge, but you will do all 4 edges. And I'm going to do this super quick. I'm going to pop them all down and then show you the finished product. I would also say as well, I don't know if I've ever like said this out loud before, but sequins come sort of like slightly concave, don't they? So they've got a like slight edge to them. So I would say always put your glue on the sort of if it looks like a bowl, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. This is like a very tiny bowl. Put your glue on the bottom side of the bowl, because then that flat bit will stick nicely. If you put it inside the bowl, then there's less glue is going to stick to the edge, if that makes sense, or stick to the surface. I don't know if anyone's ever thought about the placement of a sequin, but yeah, I do often like flip my sequin around to make sure that the right side has been glued, because there's always a sort of flatter side, and you want the flatter side with the glue on. Okay, right. I very carefully stuck those down, and hopefully it's quite hard to see in the light, but you will see we've got silver, heart, silver, heart, silver, and you could copy that process all the way around, or you could just do it on the opposite side and then switch it up for these sides, or every single side could be completely different. It's totally up to you. But my brain likes this kind of symmetry in sequin form. So I'm going to pop that there, and it's going to stay there. And let's imagine that we've done every single edge. So I'm going to swoosh these sequins to one side, and we're just going to have a feel of our heart. I think that is nice and dry now. Great. Okay. So for the heart, if it was the skeleton, by the way, I know we're not doing the skeleton because we were outvoted, but all I would do is I'd stick a bit of PVA glue on there and stick that on. And I'd probably not do much else with that, apart from maybe adding some drops of these guys, which is the kind of puffy paint. Again, you don't have to use this at all. I just have it, so I use it quite often. But it's kind of like icing when you're icing a cake, but it's not cake or icing. It's as if you are icing a piece of art, and it's got these, like, you get these sort of 3D dots on there. So the brand is called Tulip. It's not cheap. But it does go very far. So I've had these for years. I've never had to buy any more. So if you want to invest in sort of good craft stuff, then this stuff is great. But it's not the cheapest. I think I got these 6 colours. I think maybe £12 for 6 of them. It's quite a lot of money. But if you are an avid crafter, then this stuff does go really far. So I probably will use some of this, or maybe I'll just do some dots of colour. So I think I'm going to do some dots, a bit like the example piece here. You could draw stuff on it, you could do shapes. I think the eye is quite nice. The eye is quite in keeping with all these sort of Mexican shapes. They like eyes, skeletons, that sort of thing. But I think I will just do some dots on here. So you could do them with paint, you could do them with pens. If you have more Posca pens, then you could use those, or you could add more sequins to it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some dots in a contrasting colour, add a couple of sequins, and then see if we can fit some more sequins in the back when we stick it down. And then what else have we got left? I've not done the clay yet. Clay is going to be last because I'm going to get messy fingers. But we also need to cover our Matchbox. That's the other thing, the outside sleeve. So I'm going to go for, what colours haven't we used? I'm going to get like a nice bright pink, I think. Okay, so I've got a bright pink Posca pen here, but you could use what might be really nice if you don't have access to these sort of pens and you've got lots of bright paints. What I would recommend to recreate this sort of dotty effect, super easy, is get one of your small paintbrushes and use the end of it, dip it into the paint and just dot it like that. I think that would work exactly the same. Okay. Yeah, so you can watch this video on catch up afterwards. You can, I think most people probably do watch these on catch up again, mainly because you should be able to sort of pause the video. You can't pause this one because I'm live, and if you could pause me, I'd be really worried. You're like, what? How do you have access to pause me while I'm live? So yeah, I always try and like get through these in an hour so that it's not too long. But I totally appreciate that this is not something you should be able to do in an hour. You want to sit and enjoy it, right? You want to enjoy the process. So if you go back and watch these, you'll find these on the arts and crafts section. And you should be able to find all my other sessions as well, of which there are many like this that involve sequins and glitter. And then you can sort of take your time with it, pause it, go make yourself a cup of tea when you've had enough of the sound of my voice, that sort of thing, you know? So I'm just doing polka dots on here, as you can probably see. I've done a nice bright pink. I think that's looking good. And then what I might do one of these tulip bottles just so you can see what they look like, just in case you're interested. But what I would say about these guys is they take ages to dry. So once you've used them, you can't touch them because they smudge and they look rubbish. So at this point, this is a critical point, because if you are going to use one of these puffy paints, then you're going to have to set your bit of clay to one side and leave it overnight because they take ages to dry. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to be really clever. I'm feeling smart. I'm going to show it you on the skeleton on the oval so that I don't ruin the heart when I'm trying to fix it into place. That's what I'll do. That makes sense, doesn't it? So let's pretend that our skeleton is attached to our oval, which it currently isn't, but let's pretend it is. And you will hopefully be able to see how this, when you're like, what's Rosie talking about? Icing on a cake. This is what it's like. And that's, if you are a baker and you're good at icing, then this will be really easy. It has exactly the same sort of feeling to it. And you're essentially just making dots. And I'm going to stop there because I don't want to ruin what I've done. And I'm going to put that to one side. But that's what you would do with those, make nice sort of 3D dots. And the reason that I like using them for this sort of thing is the whole idea is that you're creating something that's quite 3D, has lots of layers and lots of reflective surfaces so that it catches the eye. So if it's up on someone's wall, the 3D element of it and the shininess of it is just, I love it. It's my favourite thing. Okay, so we've got our polka dots, and I think what I'm going to do is, how much time do I have? I can't stop myself. I'm like, I want more, need more on it. I'm going to see, I think a bit of gold might be quite nice. See if this gold is working. I might do some gold dots as well. And I'm just going to dot next to the dots I've already done, just to make it easier. I'm doing this super quickly. You could do it super quickly too. They're just dots. Lovely, lovely. And then I think what I would do to finish it off actually is put some sequins on it. Obviously, of course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my lovely bag here. Now, because this one, which was our big one, I had the space to add loads of sequins to the top of that heart. I don't think we're going to have that option with this because the heart is kind of filling most of the space. So to make up for that, I'm going to stick loads of sequins onto the heart itself, I think. I think that makes the most sense. So I'm going to get a selection. So I love the like little leaves. I think the leaves are lovely. And I love the shells. And I love the stars. I love all of them. Let's just pick a few out. And I think I maybe want some like flowers as well. Is there any flowers? Sorry, while I'm making loud noises with this bag. I'm going to try and find a nice heart to put in the middle. Flower, sorry, not heart. I have just spotted these little gold leaves, which are also really nice. Okay. Come on, Rosie. There's people watching this. Just fine. I just want to find one flower. There we go. That will do. Beautiful. Okay. So now we're going to stick a load of sequins onto this. Just wondering if I should... I'm going to try and do it in such a way that I can show you close up. I don't quite know how I'm going to do that, but let's see. I'm going to move these ones out of the way. I think these are my chosen ones. And I'm going to just layer it up. So I'm going to start with the big leaves. I think like a fan of leaves always works really well. And again, we're going to go glue straight onto sequin. And I'm just going to sort of create like a pattern, I guess. See what happens. I think if you choose your sequins first, you choose sort of a colour scheme and similar shapes, and then you work around it. It always works nicely wherever you put them. You can be quite random with it, or you can be quite symmetrical with it. So I've gone with like 2 leaves and a shell in the middle. And then I think I'm going to build up with these smaller leaves. There's a second layer. I'm going to leave my flower till last because my flower is going to go right in the middle. I'm going to do a tiny little gold leaf. That can go in the middle there. And see, I'm like almost shaking because it's so fiddly. Again, if you struggle with this, tweezers are great. And then we're going to go definitely put some gold stars in. Maybe we'll put some gold stars at the top. I'm going to show you the finished product closer up in a minute. I know it's quite far away. Okay, put that in there. That's going to go in that top corner. Oh, I love sequins. Sequins are the best, aren't they? I think maybe I'm just wondering if I should put another shell on while I have it. Yeah, why not? Let's just put all of those on there. I'm going to put that shell above that shell just to create a bit. Again, we're creating lots of layers. We're building it up. We're making this is 3D art, so you can make it as 3D as you possibly can. What I love about this. Okay, so I'm going to finish with my flower. There we go. There we go. Lovely. What are we on? Okay. So there's our finished heart. Look at that. It's beautiful. All those sequins on there. And if you were not on a time frame like me, I would set this to one side and let it dry so that I don't knock anything, it doesn't slide or anything. But now that this has been sort of stuck down for a few minutes, these sequins shouldn't slide. I would leave it longer if I had the time, and I do each section bit by bit. But just to show you, if I was fixing this in place, I would just dollop a bit of glue on there, just a bit of PVA. I'm not going to do it now just because I'm just going to place it in there so you can see. And then it was just going to sit in there like that. Oh, beautiful. How good does that look? Isn't that beautiful? And you can add more sequins to it. You could add whatever. You could throw a load of glitter at it. But that's essentially finished, right? If the edges had sequins on it, that would be your final piece. I'm really pleased with that. I think that looks lovely. So that's done. Pretty much. We're going to put that to one side, and then we need to think about our outer layer, which I'm going to do very, very quickly because I want to actually show you the clay. That's going to be the last thing. Now, all I've done for this, I haven't finished it because what I wanted to do was just show you that you could maybe write things on it. You could write names and things. And I'm going to be super fast with this because I want to show you the clay. But all I've got here is like an old bit of so this is a bird book which I got from a charity shop. I think it was £1, and it's great because it's got a load of pictures in it which I can rip out and use, repurposing something that other people didn't want. And I really like old book pages. I think they look great. So I've just ripped out a page, and I'm going to use the straight edge to measure here. And essentially all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it around that corner like that and pinch it where it sits, and then put it down and then fold it properly, really straight, using this straight edge to get your perfect size. And I'm also going to pinch the length of it like so, like this. I'm going to fold that and make sure that the fold is straight, this edge, this side and this side. We want them all to line up. There you go. And then this is the side that we're going to cut. I'm going to do that very quickly. And I'm not even going to show you how I stick this down because I think you guys are capable. I'm just going to put PVA glue on it and stick it on, essentially. So that's our first edge. And then we do our second edge. You sort of hold it, line it up. It's a bit like wrapping presents, really. There you go. We're going to go all the way around. Can you see now that they've been pre-folded? They sit really nicely. Again, pinching that bit there. And that goes around like that. And then you've got an overlap here. So if we pinch that last bit, fold that into place. And we can stick all of that down if we want. That overlaps fine, like so. There you go, that fits really lovely. All I've done is just made sure that my folds are really neat and crisp and sit really nicely against the corners. And the sticking down of it is very self-explanatory. I'm just going to paint this edge, all of this inside with PVA glue, and then just very carefully stick it down and make sure every bit is sort of stuck down nicely. That's it, essentially. That's all I've done. That's all you need to do. You don't need to do any more. And in fact, you don't even need to stick paper down if you don't want. You could decorate it in the same way we decorated the inside. You could paint the outside, add some glitter. But I just thought that would be a bit different. So that's all you're going to do, really. And then once it's stuck down and you've let that dry, you've got your sort of outside. And then all you need to do is, well, you don't need to do anything, actually. You don't need to do anything. You could add some sequins, you could add some glitter, or you could write someone's name on it. You could write a message on it. That bit I don't think is the important bit, really. That's only if you're giving it to someone. You don't need to use this bit. If you're making it for yourself, all you need to do is this bit and then put it up, right? You don't need this bit. So that's just a really easy way of sort of covering it and making sure it's not just boring brown card, right? Okay, I've gone through that bit as quickly as possible because the most important bit is the clay, right? So air dry clay looks like normal clay. There's no difference in it, really, in terms of like how we use it. I'm just going to move all these out of the way. And you will see I have placed my clay in a bowl with some water. This was just so that it didn't dry out whilst I was talking to you. But you can see, so this bit here, this clay that I've got here, it looks like quite a small bit of clay, but this will make more than all of the clay that we have here. You really don't need a lot. Now, you will need some water because it helps soften it, but you can sort of have it to one side. So what I'm going to attempt to do is just show you how I would make something. So you're going to have to get your fingers dirty. It's a bit like sort of kneading bread. If I show you like a little, maybe I'll do a little skeleton head first because that's really easy. And if it doesn't like go in the shape that you want it, you just add some water. And I would just say all you really need to use is your finger. I'm not using any implements. You don't need any implements at all. Some people have like, you know, like smoothing apparatus and stuff like that, but you're making such tiny things that it really doesn't matter. And you just are bending it into shape. and then smoothing it out. That's essentially all I'm going to do. Really, really easy. Now this bit is really sticky because it's the bit that was in the water. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a bit that's a bit drier. I'm just like getting a small pinch. Look, don't need loads. And you sort of like, if it's quite hard, then you might need to sort of bend it into shape a little bit. Work it. See if I can make this into a heart. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of flatten it into sort of like an oval shape. And then I'm going to pinch the middle bit here and make a really rubbish heart shape, right? Just like that. That's all I'm doing. And then I'm going to bend the bottom bit to make that bottom point. But once you've done that, you can start smoothing it with your finger and bending it into shape. And it's just the smoothness that you want, really. The smoother the surface, the easier it will be to decorate, easier it will be to paint, easier it will be to stick things on it. Now, you don't have to do a fancy shape. Like a heart, I find is quite difficult compared to some others, because you want that nice sort of symmetry. You can just do blobs and then you can paint them afterwards. If you're better at painting than you are sort of constructing clay, then make a really simple shape and then do all the decorating afterwards. The only reason we're using the clay is to sort of make it 3D. You could use polymer clay if you wanted. If you've used polymer clay before, that's sort of already a colour, so you perhaps don't need to decorate it quite so much. But polymer clay, I think you do need to like bake and do stuff with, and it's not as sticky. It's not as sticky as normal clay, but I think you get more bang for your buck with air dry clay, because this stuff goes so far. You saw like how small that piece was that I used just to get this heart. And that was from a chunk that was maybe a tenth of what you would get in like a small pack from a craft shop for like a £5. So it goes really, really far. Whereas polymer clay, you get quite small pieces and they're quite expensive. But then I suppose you don't have to paint them. So the main thing really is that when you're happy with your shape, is that you're going to go over every single surface that you can, every single little tiny bit with your finger, and just make it super, super smooth. That's the best bit. It's just smoothing out all those edges. Don't worry about the bottom bit too much, as long as it's flat. You're not going to see the bottom bit as much. And then once you've done that, you can literally just lay it to one side and let it dry. You can lay it to dry on a radiator, as I said before. I don't think it affects anything too much. So with the skeleton head, I'm just doing like a blob that I've sort of smoothed, and then I'm squeezing it, pinching it in the middle, and then you've got like a slightly bigger bit at the top than you have at the bottom. So that's the sort of head bit, and I'm smoothing that with my fingers. This bit's a bit wetter. I think the wetter the clay, the harder it is to smooth, because it all just sort of wants to come off onto your finger, a bit like when you're baking, when you're like making shortbread, and you're just going around doing all that. And when you're happy with it, with the shape of it, just smooth it a little bit more with my finger, and then I'll show you like an oval really quickly. So I probably want this a little bit smoother, but I'd spend a bit more time on it. Oops, sorry. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these paintbrushes that's still got paint on it. So this could go terribly wrong, but I'm going to use the end of a paintbrush, and I'm just going to do 2 marks inside to make my eyes. Simple as that. Simple as that. And then you can smooth it over. I can add the mouth and the nose when it's dry, when I've painted it. And then that's like a little skeleton head. Easy peasy. And then last but not least, I'm going to do like an oval. So for an oval, I'm going to roll a ball in my hands, in the palm of my hands. Now, hopefully this is proof that you don't need any skill in clay to do this, because I'm rubbish at clay, so rubbish, but I've been able to make these things. And because I've used air dry clay, I've not used fancy stuff, it kind of feels like it doesn't matter if you fail at it, because it's, you know, it's fine. So I've made a nice ball there with the palm of my hand, and then I'm going to press it down on a surface, and there you sort of will naturally have, it's hard to get off if it's too, oh, that's not worked at all, has it? So again, same as baking, If it's not dry enough, then it's not going to stick very well. So we'll go again. We'll roll it in the palms of our hands. But this time I think what I'll do is I'll just flatten it in my hand rather than on a surface, because it was a bit too sticky. If it was a drier piece, then you probably would have been able to take it off the table a bit better. But here we go. I'm just flattening this bit. And that's kind of turned out as a circle rather than an oval, but I think that's okay. Now, the only thing I would say about this is when you're constructing, just be mindful of the size of your Matchbox, because it's very easy to just go ahead and make your shapes and then be like, it doesn't actually fit. It's either too small or too big. So just when you're constructing these, just make sure you have one of your blank Matchboxes at hand so you can check the width of it and make sure it's going to fit nicely. And so with these flat pieces, I'm just going to spend a bit more time on the sort of flattening and smoothing out with my fingers. Make sure it's a nice flat surface, making sure the sort of width of it is the same all the way through, and the depth of it. Kind of make it, I guess the kind of look I'm going for with the sort of oval shapes is like a kind of locket, I guess. Looks a bit like a locket, maybe, like one of those sort of oval picture frames. You turn it over, make sure it's nice and smooth. I think you're best to just smooth all of it if you can, because then you can use whatever side you like. You can paint all the surfaces then. But as you can see, I've just very quickly made a heart, a skeleton head, and an oval shape with the smallest amount of clay and absolutely no equipment but my fingers. And that's all you need to do. And then you can just stick it by a radiator. You put them on a plate or whatever, and then just leave them to dry overnight. And you'll know instinctively when they're ready, because they're all hard and they're a very much lighter colour than this dark sort of grey. You can buy different types of clay as well. You can buy white and terracotta, but really you just want the cheapest. You want the cheapest one, because you're not making pots with it. You're just making beautiful shapes and you're going to paint them. So you don't be conned into buying some kind of fancy stuff. You just want the cheapest going. Okay, so once that's nice and smooth and you think it's nice and flat, that's fine as well, and you can set those out to dry. So as I explained before, I ended the session with the start of the process. I hope that made sense. But that's it. So we leave those to dry, and then we go back to the beginning of this session and carry on from there. So I'm going to be very careful, and I don't want to get clay on these beautiful pieces here, but I'm going to pop them into the center so you can see them. So that is how to make a Matchbox shrine using air dry clay and obviously loads of glitter and sequins and bright colours. And hopefully you guys are all going to have a go. Hopefully you can maybe try and, you could try and make them Easter themed, but if I got one of these for Easter, I'd be happier than, would I be happier than getting a chocolate egg? I would still want both. I would still want a chocolate egg, but I'd be equally impressed if I got one of these. So hopefully you've enjoyed the session. I've got very dirty fingers now, so I need to go and wash my hands. But hopefully that's been a nice introduction to something that I don't use. Like, I don't use clay at all, but it's a really inexpensive, effective way of using clay and making 3D art that anyone can do. I hope you really enjoyed the session. I hope you had a great time. I'm going to be very careful with my hands. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Rosie. My business is Rosie and Ramona, and I'll be back soon. I'll be back, I think, next week or the week after. I'm going to be doing more abstract painting, which is going to be super fun. So if you want to do some exciting painting that anyone can do, I promise, please come along to that. And have a lovely Tuesday. I hope it's not raining where you are. Still complaining about the rain. Thank you very much, everyone. See you soon. Bye.